All right, everybody, welcome back. So now I'm going to go over the chord changes, just like a quick rundown of this. So the chord changes, this is going to affect Arena for the next year. But I think for the most part, a lot of these changes are not really going to change the Arena dynamic. I mean, most changes are side grades, and outside really, I wouldn't say Paladin and Warrior. There's not that many classes that really get impacted or have a lot better of a core set where it's going to really change the dynamic of the class. So as I mentioned, I'm not scoring these cards. I'm just running down these cards here. So the reason I'm not going to run down these cards is, one second, if I can pull this down. I believe it's here, is this thing here, Hex. So Hex here says transform a minion into an 0/1 frog with taunt, and it's changed from 4 mana to 3 mana. Now, a long time ago, Hex used to be 3 mana, and it got nerfed to 4 mana. So, and what happened in Arena when that happened? Nothing. Like, nothing happened. It was still, like, maybe it went down a point or two on, like, the tier list or something, but Hex, the card, fundamentally remained the same. So, if you change a card, and it really does not change anything about the card, if it just fundamentally remains the same, then there's really no point, like, you give it, like, an extra point or two, and then you just move on. And so for a lot of spells like this, like, you lose Hex, like Hex changes. You're using it in the exact same situations. Is it worse? Like, is it better now? Yes. Is it really going to affect games? Probably not. So that's why so many of these cards are not curve cards. Many of these cards are cards that were played in the mid game to the late game where you could fit the mana better. Many of these cards have buffs to them that really don't matter the time that you play them. So overall, I'm going to say most of these cards, probably the changes don't really matter. That's the best way to describe it. All right, so there are two separate lists here. List number 1 here are cards returning the core that got buffed. List number 2 here, these are the cards that are leaving core or coming back to core that were not buffed. So some of these actually overlap. Like if it's card coming back that got buffed, it's going to be over here. So I mean, you're going to have to deal with the two lists. If you want to see access to the lists, they're both listed in the document below. All right, so we start off with Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter, the big changes that they got, and I'm going to skip over the legendaries. Corvus for Kayn. Kayn's better, doesn't matter. So Chaos Nova, Immolation, or honestly, that's a side grade. Like, you lose a big AoE, you get a small AoE. The small AoE is arguably better against certain board states than the big AoE. Sightless Watcher, that was a solid 2-drop. You get Illidari Studies. So you get Discover an Outcast minion, cost 1 less. That's obvious. That's a buff for Demon Hunter. So again, like these are, like outside of that, it's like a push, it's a buff, but it's not really that big of one. So among cards that are getting changed, Flame Reaper goes from a 4/3 to a 5/3. You're using it the same, it doesn't really matter. Gennard Glavesmith goes from a 3/2 to a 3/3. Wrathscale Naga 3/2 to a 3/3. Those cards, like, as long as they're not 1 health, like the change there doesn't really matter all that much. Like, it makes it a little bit better, a little stickier, but those cards probably, like the Gennard Glavesmith's value is in the Outcast. The Wrathscale Naga's value is in trading things immediately off on the board. The extra health doesn't matter all that much. Metamorphosis comes back, and it's back at 4 mana to deal 4. Your hero power says deal 4. And I mean, that's fine for the card. So, as I said, Demon Hunter, really not that much going on. Just like the buffs here are okay to Metamorphosis and Flame Reaper. So it's a little bit better, but not really all that much. Okay, Druid. Fandral for Kiri. I think I like Fandral more, but yeah, that's gone. Force of Nature, that's gone. No one really ever picked it for Witchwood Apple. Witchwood Apple is one of the few buff cards that's actually pretty good. Earthen Scales is gone. Like, that's fine. Like, no one ever picked Earthen Scales. So we got Mounted Raptor gone for Solar Eclipse and Lunar Eclipse, effectively. So Druid loses Mounted Raptor. They gain Solar Eclipse, Lunar Eclipse, and Witchwood Apple. Solar and Lunar Eclipse, they're like okay cards, not really that great. Like, Lunar is a lot better than Solar. Witchwood Apple is going to be a great card in Arena. Why? Because Treants are now, let's see, did I still list them over here? Treants are now 1 mana, 2/2 minions. Yes, right here. So when this says add 2 treants to your hand, you play this on 1. Turn 2, you get 4/4 worth of stats. Really strong. Or you play this on 3, and it's 3 mana for 2/2/2s, which is acceptable. Or you play this and you use it for like finale cards. So you use it to fill out your curve so you can hit the finale. So again, like there's a lot of versatility here. As for overall changes here, okay, Witchwood Apple, as I mentioned, is great. Ancient of Lore, it's an epic, you don't see it that much, but getting +2/+2, that's good. Druid of the Claw is buffed, so it goes from a 5 mana 5/4 with Rush or a 5/6 with Taunt to a 6 mana 7/6 with Rush or 4/9 with Taunt. It's a buff, and it's kind of a nerf at the same time. Reason being is, let me pull this up here. Let me see here. I'll just go neutral cards. Okay, minion. Not I get wrong one here. Minion, 6 mana. Okay, actually, never mind. I thought there was a lot more like really powerful 6 mana minions. I might be thinking from old sets, so I might have been wrong in this. But what I was gonna say was I thought there were a lot more real powerful 6 mana minions, and apparently in standard there aren't. So I guess I'm wrong. I guess I was wrong on that. I guess this is really about. But I'm used to like 6 mana minions being really strong, like Scribe or the dragon, the 5/6 dragon that summons a 3/4 dragon. So I was gonna say is that there's a lot more wiggle room. There's a lot more weakness at 5 than there is at 6, but apparently that's not the case. So, oops, wrong one. All right, so this is more of a buff than I thought it was. Soul of the Forest. Again, like this is a card. It's like board dependent. Going from 4 to 3 is a buff, but it's not really a great one. Like it's not like completely game changing. Okay, next one here. What we got? We've got Hunter. So Hunter, like Cloaked Huntress never really worked with secrets. Like that's just something that didn't happen. Shaw for Dragonbane, that's effectively the same. Spring Paw for Jewel Macaw, like Macaw's better. You lose Snake Trap and you gain Wandering Monster and Cat Trick. There's a lot of times where I like to discover and play Snake Trap off the discover, so I honestly think Snake Trap is still better. Like it hurts having these cards in and this one is gone. Dire Frenzy for Doggy Biscuit. Doggy Biscuit stays. Doggy Biscuit is a good card. So ultimately, like what do you lose? You lose Cloaked Huntress, which was a solid curve card, you get Doggy Biscuit. You lose Snake Trap, you get the Secrets, that's kind of a wash. Macaw for Awe, that's like a little bit of a buff, so it's like a tiny buff for Hunter. Overall, with card changes for Hunter, High Main goes from a 6/5 to a 7/5. Does that really matter all that much? I don't think so. All right, next one here. We've got Mage. Kalecgos, okay, so you get like a little less like dragon stuff here. But Kalecgos for Stargazer Luna, Kalecgos was better. Flame Strike for Firelands. Board's minions have been getting weirder, so Flame Strike has lost a little bit of its value. Like, it's still a good card, but if we go and we take, let me reset all filters, Arena, like, Flame Strike is not the be-all, end-all that it used to be for Mage. Like, if we take a look at class cards here, where's Flame Strike? Flame Strike's like right here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got 10 cards that perform better than Flame Strike in Arena. So, I mean, it was good, but it was like, the problem is that boards are weird enough, and things have 6 or health more, that Flame Strike is not nearly at the level that it once was. So, losing Flame Strike is not that bad. And I'd honestly think Firelands might be better than Flame Strike with some of the meta. Pyromaniac, that was okay, but you get Fire Sail back, so that's kind of like Fire Sail says that's going to be. Ethereal Conjurer, that's going to be a loss, but there's a lot of discover things, so it's not unique in its ability to discover a spell. So in turn, you get Flame Geyser. So Flame Geyser, which got buffed to 1 mana, deal 2 damage, add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. And I mean, that's good. You just play this on turn 2, play the Flame Geyser, and you can play the elemental there if you want. Arcane Artificer, I mean, that's not really good for Arena, okay? Kona Cold leaving, that's, yeah. So Mages, they got, I want to say, a little bit of a nerf. Like, Firelands is probably better than Flame Strike, but I think, like, losing Conjurer and Kona Cold for Fire Sail and the new Flame Geyser, that's mediocre. And then, what else did they get here? Oh, I forgot to mention for the Hunter thing. Jewel Macaw got buffed to 2 health. That's how little it matters. So for Mage, Babbling Book got buffed to 2 health. Doesn't matter. Like, effectively, it doesn't matter. It just makes it easier it makes it harder against ping classes to trade it off or to play like a 3-2. All right, next one here. What we got? We got Paladin. So we take a look at Paladin. Paladin lost its secrets. Secrets, they didn't really matter. They lose Ragnaros for Loxarian. Okay, Ragnaros is a little better. That's fine. Aldor is a loss, obviously. Big loss. But you get Muster for Battle back. I would take all 5 of these just for Muster for Battle. And then you get Hand of Adal. And then you get Hammer of Wrath, which is buffed. And you get Grime Street Outfitter, which is buffed. As I said, Paladin and Warrior got the 2 biggest buffs by far to me. Hammer of Wrath, it's kind of like a 3 mana, deal 3, draw a card. That's pretty much what it should be costing. So it goes from being an average okay card to being a good card. Grime Street Outfitter, it was a solid card already at 1-1. Being at 2-2, being able to contest on the board makes it a really good card. So, like, hand buffs are going to be a thing. You're going to pick this a lot in Paladin. And then Hand of Adal, buff a minion, draw a card. That's, like, always good. So, again, Paladin got major buffs compared to the other classes. Priest. As I mentioned, Priest has the overheal stuff. I covered it in the previous video. Losing Lyra, Murozond, Lyra, they really didn't matter. Koltir and Champlain, it was like good, but it was only okay. You lose Radiant, you lose Northshire, you lose Power Infusion. Like, you lose some of like the spell synergy stuff. I mean, that's fine. And what do you gain? I covered the overheal cards. The overheal cards are mainly good. Geode's definitely above. Crimson Clergy's probably better in current arena than Northshire. Holy Champion, I honestly would prefer the 4 mana 3/5 to the 2 mana 1/4, but sure. Benedictus doesn't matter. Shadow Ascendant, it gets buffed to a 2/3, so that's a lot better. So Priest, like, having board buffs is fine. In Shard of the Naru, that was always a solid card, and that stays. Katarina Muerte, you resurrect another friendly undead minion. So I'm not sure how many undead minions you're going to have. This might actually be not that great. But that's all I'll say about that. Not much needs to be said. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, for Paladin, like, this is how little, like, some of the buffs matter. I forgot to mention some of these things. Paladin buffs, I forgot to cover over here. Crucible Champion now heals for 3. That doesn't matter. Consecration is now 3 mana. That matters, but less than you would think. Consecration at 3 mana, like, again, it's like the Hex thing. Are you really playing it on turn 3? No, so it's just like a minor buff to the later game. As for Priest buffs here, we got Draconid Operative, which goes from a 5/5/6 to a 4 mana 4/5, which is basically a side grave. Holy Nova now deals damage to enemies, which includes the hero's face. Doesn't matter. Psychic Conjurer gains a health. Doesn't matter. All right. Next time here, we've got Rogue. So Rogue loses Sprint. They lose Assassin's Blade. For some reason, I read that as Assassin. I don't know. I read that as Assassin. I have no idea why. They lose Sinister Strike. They lose Cold Blood. They lose Plague Scientist. They lose Tomb Pillager. Plague Scientist hurts. Sprint was okay. Cold Blood was, like, it gets replaced. So, what did they get in here? They get their secret stuff, but secrets are kind of mediocre, right? You get Elven Minstrel. Minstrel's better than Sprint, like, even in the current state. You get a buffed Fan of Knives, and you get a Viscerate back. So as long as Viscerate is not micro-adjusted into the Nether, then that's going to be a lot better than a Cold Blood. Fan of Knives buff, like, Fan of Knives is already a really good card, and it just became a better card. That's basically what it is. But again, losing Plague Scientist, that kind of hurts. That hurts a lot. Tomb Pillager was a solid 4. Like, I think Fan of Knives and Eviscerate, I'm not sure if Fan, Eviscerate, and Minstrel are worth all of this. Are worth losing a solid removal, and worth losing Tomb Pillager, and worth losing a lot of draw. That's basically my thought there. Alright. As for changes, like, Minstrel got buffed. Again, health buff really doesn't matter for when you play it. Fan of Knives got buffed. I mean, it's a better card, definitely, but I don't think it really changes it, like, it's not going to change it, like, by a tier score. Swashbuckler got buffed by 1 health. Again, doesn't matter. Alright, next one here. Shaman. Shaman loses Mana Tide, which doesn't really matter. Maelstrom and Tidal Surge, they lose both of those. Maelstrom's has always been a good card. Tidal Surge is fine. Rockbiter, the current Rockbiter, just garbage. And what do they get back? They get Ancestral Knowledge, which I think is now, was it previously Overload 2? I'm not sure. Because it's draw 2 cards, Overload 1. I thought that was how all we, I guess it was previously Overload 2, now it's Overload 1, so that's fine. But, okay, so Overdraft, like, it's okay, it's not really that great. It's just a card usually to trade, you don't really have the big overloads for it. Zap is Thing from Below, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not as great as it once was. And Ancestral Knowledge, like, I'd rather have Maelstrom and Tidal Surge over this, being honest. As for buffs, Feral Spirits got buffed, I think, to only Overload 1 instead of Overload 2. And Hex, I mentioned, doesn't really matter. Menacing Nimbus, that's a buff to be 3 health instead of 2 health. But again, it's not going to like move it up a ton in the tier list. Alright, so Warlock. Warlock lost a bunch of small demons. They lost Felsoul Jailer, they lost Void Terror, they lost some of their discard synergy in Tiny Knight of Evil and Darkshire Librarian. So what they get back? They got back big demons. They got back Mal'Ganis. They got back Enhanced Dreadlord. They have a card that discovers demons. You're going to see these. They got back Defile. Defile's a great card. They got back Voidcaller. Voidcaller can still pull off an Abyssal or anything like that. Spirit Bomb, So again, Warlock got a buff. I'm not going to say major buff, but they did get buffed. As for changes to Warlock, really did not have any changes. Like Hellfire gets buffed. Hellfire goes from 4 mana to 3 mana. Again, you're not using Hellfire on 3, so it's a moderate buff in the mid to late game. Finally here, we got Warrior. What does Warrior lose? They lose War Axe, they lose Gorehowl. Gorehowl is like really the only card here that matters among these cards that they're losing. And they got major buffs because you got Sword Eater, which is a great card. Dynamatic, great card. Frightened Flunky, great card. Woodcutter's Axe, which gives 2/1 to any minion, not just a rush minion, which makes it a really great card. Blade Storm is a solid remover. Armageddon right here is a solid card here. Heavy Plate, it's trade bait. That's all I need to say there. So in terms of trading here, like Armageddon is fine, doesn't really matter. Woodcutter's Axe, as I said, this is going to be a top tier card for Warrior. And then finally for the neutral changes. So we take a look here, you lose the Explorers, like you lose Lone Champion, which was a solid card, you lose Ooze, like really the ones that matter. Scalebane, Dark Iron Dwarf, Mistress of Mixtures. These are like the 3 cards that really matter because these 2 are strong buffs that you're going to lose, and this is a strong play on 1. But you get a lot of cards that come back. Like Murmy, I think replaces that. Viper replaces Swamp Ooze. So a lot of these cards, like the legendaries, they're fine here. So the real big change for them is going to be 2 things. Number one, it's going to be Royal Librarian. It goes from a 3/4 to a 4/4. You still don't play it on 4. Like you still trade it or you still hold it because the silence is that valuable, so it's not really that great. And number 2, you get the magnetic cards back. So the problem with the magnetic cards is there really aren't that many mechs. So the magnetic effect is not going to be that strong. But all 3 of them got buffed. Bronze Gatekeeper is now a really good card because if you do hit it on a mech, then it's incredibly powerful because 2/5 is a great buff and you get the taunt. War Gear goes from a 5/5 to a 6/5, so it's a lot better on curve, but for magnetic effects doesn't really matter. Replicating Menace goes from a 3/1 to a 3/2, which again, that's good. It makes it harder to remove. That's going to make the card better. I don't think it's going to push it into that elite territory. So that right there, that's all the core changes. As I said, I'm not going to go really in depth on those cards, but I just wanted to run through them with you. All right, when I get back, I'm going to start on the class cards, and I will start on Death Knight. So I will see you guys then. Later.